What's up, plant lovers? Devin is here, and we've made it to summertime. So what should you do with your plants if you're going on vacation? In this video, I'm gonna go through what I do for my houseplants when I go on vacations of less than 10 days or greater than 10 days. So I'm actually about to head over to Europe with my wife for 3 months next week. So over the last few weeks, I have been preparing my houseplants, getting everything ready for this voyage. This is not the first time I've done such a trip. Over the last 5 years, I've spent 3 of those years away from my houseplants for periods of 3 to 4 months each time. And so each occasion that I've done such a voyage, I have learned a few more tips, a few more tricks, and in this video, I'm gonna share all of those details with you. So first, we'll start with the shorter version. If you're going on a vacation for 10 days or less, you don't need to hire anyone to water your plants. You really don't need to do a whole lot of things to ensure your houseplants are gonna be looking good when you return. First thing that you wanna do, if you do use grow lights, turn them off. If you have windows with shades, put those shades down, close your blinds. We're going to restrict the amount of light that we're going to give our houseplants during that 10-day or 7 to 10-day vacation. The reason is because, as we know, photosynthesis requires light and water to encourage the creation of growth. So by restricting light, we're naturally going to be restricting water because we're going to be away from our house. So that way we're going to minimize the opportunity for photosynthesis to occur. Thus our plants won't grow. Thus they won't need any additional inputs like water while we are gone. The third thing you want to do is set your thermostat. If you're in the summertime, set it to an air conditioning of 78. If you set your air conditioning at, say, like 80, 82, yes, of course, that can just be a little bit detrimental to your home, but it also is going to encourage your plants to use water more rapidly if your home is too warm. So for me, I found that 78 is the perfect temperature. It allows my electric bill to stay pretty low without keeping the home overly warm, encouraging the plants to use water too rapidly. On the flip side, if you're going in the winter time, setting your thermostat at around 68, that's a perfect temperature. It's going to keep your house in good shape at that temperature, and it's also not too low whereas your plants may experience some detriment from being in too cold of a condition. So in the summertime, AC at 78, in the winter time, heat at 62. Those are my parameters that I use. And the final thing is, of course, having drip trays underneath your plants, and at the very last moment, giving them a nice solid drink of water such that water flows through the drip tray, and you can in fact leave even a 1/4 of an inch of water in those drip trays, and that'll definitely be utilized by your plant over the coming 7 to 10 days. And that's pretty much all you need to know if you're doing a shorter trip. Now let's get into longer vacations or longer stays away from your home. All right, so for trips that are 14, 30, 2 months, 3 months of time, you're definitely going to need someone to water your plants. That's first and foremost an obvious point. I have them coming on a once a week schedule, once every 7 days. It does encourage a little bit of extra stress on some of my plants, but on the entirety of my 150 house plants, that should cover 95% of them, and that is as much as we can hope for. Secondly, we want to set our thermostats same as above, 78 degrees air conditioned in the summertime or 62 in the winter time. The next thing that we want to do is we want to group all of our house plants together. You guys know I keep house plants in every single room of my home. It's like a 3,000 square foot home, so I have plants all over the place. For this, I have crammed everything together so everything is in one solid place. It's easy for them to water. They can do it more efficiently. They're not gonna miss things. And that is a hugely important thing to make sure that you do as well. I still want my plants to be happy. They are gonna be watered once a week, so that should definitely be a reason to leave your grow lights on. But of course, all your grow lights should be on a 12-hour schedule. You could potentially minimize that to like an 8 to 10 hour schedule. Using timers is very important for our grow lights, always, including when we're on vacation. Now, the next thing you need to do is to ensure that you've taken all of your house plants out of their cache pots. Here you can see I have my huge pile of cache pots that all of my house plants had been sitting in prior to, creating a lovely, nice display in those pretty pots. However, I recommend taking them out of those cache pots, and the reason is for you want your house plant sitters to be able to water them and determine if water has in fact come out of the bottom of those plastic pots if they're growing in those plastic pots like this. You're not going to find someone that knows your houseplants as well as you, so you want to make their job as easy as possible, and that requires removing cache pots from the situation. Now, the next thing you need to do is if you do have any plants that are growing in attractive decorative pots that don't have drains, you need to mark them. No draining. That is going to allow them to understand that they need to be a little bit more careful on how they're watering those plants that don't have drainage, since of course water will be sitting in these pots and without having the ability to freely drain. This also takes me to the next point, is that if you have any aggressive growers, any plants that grow exceptionally quickly, things like coleus or dragonwing begonias or Pilea mollis, plants that grow very quickly, cut them back. This is a good opportunity to let your house plants that grow super fast to start over. That means they're not going to go overly grown while you're gone. It means they're going to be looking fresh once you've returned home. But it also means that they're going to be utilizing less energy while you are gone. They won't need quite as much water since they won't have quite as much top growth. All right, so that's super important. We want to minimize the amount of water our plants need, and by cutting them back, that does help improve that situation a little bit, okay? And I think it's really nice to come back to plants that are just sort of reaching a nice state rather than coming back to plants that are overgrown that then need to be cut back, right? Now, along the same vein, if you have any plants that are a little bit overgrown and need a little bit of taming, like your purple heart Tradescantia, I cut this back by about half, and now that just means that it's not going to be, as plants have more and more foliage, that means they need more and more water, right? So by cutting plants that are really big back a little bit, that's also going to save on the amount of water that those plants need. That's going to encourage the general health of our plants to be a little bit better when we return. Now, the next thing might be a little bit hard for you to do, but it is important to do if you have plants like orchids that are flowering beautifully. You're going to want to cut these back as well. It takes a little bit of heartlessness to do it. And the reason that we do this is to give our orchid or whatever other flowering houseplant you might have the opportunity to rest while we're gone and start to encourage the formation of new growth during that period of time that we're gone, so that when we come back, they will be kind of gearing up for the next flush of flowers, all right? So I'm gonna go put these in a vase and enjoy them for the next week before we leave. Likewise, if you have any plants that have some foliage that just isn't perfect, this is a great opportunity to remove any imperfections so that while you're gone, it has a chance to create some new perfect leaves. The next thing to consider doing is if you have a lot of small containers like I do right here, grouping them together, putting them in like an old pie dish or Pyrex or something where they can share a single drip tray can be quite effective, because smaller plants do tend to dry out more quickly. When your plant sitters come to water, any excess moisture will be sitting in the bottom of this single drip tray, so to speak, and the plants can use that excess water over that following week as needed. And I think that's a really effective way to help keep our smaller plants, which are a little bit more susceptible to drying out too quickly while we're on vacation. It's a way to help ameliorate that situation a little bit better. Now, the one time you might want to turn a grow light off is if you have any very high-end, high-powered LED grow lights like this one. This Grow Bar by Mother is super powerful. I love it. It's where I grow all of my succulents. It really does a great job providing light to high light requiring plants like succulents in the wintertime. However, because it is such a bright light, that means that the plants that sit underneath it will dry out quite quickly. So for this guy, I will definitely turn him off and allow any plants on this shelf to just be lit by the windows instead of this additional super high powered grow lights. All right, so the next thing you want to consider doing is take cuttings of any plants that are particularly important to you. For me, my Peru Monstera is super important to me. It's actually not doing that well over in that corner, so I wanted to make sure to take a cutting just in case anything happens while I'm gone. I'll have a cutting that will be rooting while I'm gone to just be kind of an insurance policy. The other great thing is that, after 3 months of being gone, this will definitely be chock full of roots that I'll be able to then go and pot up. So take cuttings of plants that are super precious to you just as an insurance policy, and enjoy the fact that they will be ready for you when you return. Now, the next thing you'll want to do is, if you have any plants that are kind of starting to really outgrow their containers, perhaps they're getting a little bit root bound, this is your chance. Pot them up into the next size container before you leave. The reason is because plants that are pot bound obviously cannot hold on to moisture quite as long as plants that are not pot bound. So by increasing the pot size with extra new fresh soil, you will be giving them an opportunity to hold on to a little bit more moisture from week to week. And that's going to allow them to stay less stressed out. And also, while you're gone, they'll have a chance to fill out that next container. So my Monstera is starting to get a little bit overgrown in this smallish pot. I'm going to be planting this up to the next size container before I leave. That way I know for sure that it won't need more water than just once a week like my plant sitter will be coming to do. And with that, now you know how to prepare your houseplants for an extended stay away from them. And just to conclude, make sure you start your preparations early and reduce your expectations. You will lose a few plants. That's just going to be par for the course. Every year that I've done this, I always lose a handful of it, but I think of it as a sort of forced purge, allowing the weak plants in my houseplant garden to fall by the wayside, allowing the strong performers to continue growing well. If you do have any other further questions or comments or experience being away from your houseplants for extended periods of time, please make sure to leave any comments in the comment section below. I always do my very best to read and respond to each and every one of them. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on Plant Vibrations. Consider subscribing to our page. We're bringing new plant related content every single week. Anyways, I'll catch you guys soon. Ciao.